Welcome to Creative Flux, episode 15.
15, woo.
15. I know, it's big. I'm Pierson,
And I'm Bilal.
and Creative Flux is the podcast where we dive into everything around generative media. Images, video, worlds, music. So we just talk about all that stuff and leave all the deep coding to the other guys. But sometimes that comes in here too. So today we have a bunch of things to talk about. A lot of stuff that happened in the world. I mean, last week we talked about things like World Labs.
Nano Banana for videos, like we could edit
Right.
stuff. I remember Ray 3, which had just come out, which was really good. And yeah, I mean, every week seems like new models are released, new capabilities are unlocked. So, just
Right. It's
there's
so
so
it's
many.
so sick. I know. And like being at the forefront of this, it's cool. Like it's our job to kind of stay aware of what's going on in the tech world because there's so much alpha to do that. And we're trying to share this with everybody who's watching this or listening to this, wherever they are consuming it. Hopefully podcast form, podcasts are the best, but maybe it's on YouTube as well. But this week was cool. So there was, you said Suno V5 came out.
Yes, it sounds really good. And I don't have a Suno subscription, but I'm on the verge of getting one just to play more with it because I do think this is at some point, I knew we're gonna get models good enough that we're gonna get the first Billboard 100 like AI native song. I wonder if Suno, V5, could be that one. I mean, it definitely has a shot because the some of the songs I've heard are just basically, for me, for my untrained ear, as good as like any other song I've heard, like, that's made it big. But you're more of I know you have a more refined musical taste than me. So what do you think?
Well, so far at least. So I listened to Suno 4.5. I don't think I have a subscription. Yeah, no, I don't. I just logged into Suno just to make sure I wasn't paying for a subscription. But yeah, V4.5, I think. Was it V4?
Yeah, there was 4.5 as well.
4.5, yeah.
Yeah.
That was pretty good, honestly, especially for electronic music was solid because the thing that you could always kind of get that AI feel was lyrics, whether it was the lyrics sounded cheesy, which was a problem with like Suno V3. Lyrics were cheesy. And then 4 came out, lyrics were better, melodies were better, and it had less of that AI feel. 4.5, I don't remember the difference between 4 and 4.5 really, but I'm excited because I think genuinely music theory there are rules to music theory. Music is it's an art, but it's also science in some ways because it's actually like, keys and things. And so I think that's very possible to be trained on with a lot of data. But lyrics are different because when you're singing, it's much more continuous. So out of key and the key that you sing in, it's just, you could be deep. There's just so many
Right. Yeah.
things that you could do there versus like actual instrumental music. So instrumental music, I think we've passed Uncanny Valley. I mean, it's
Hmm.
indistinguishable from whether or not it was a producer sitting behind Logic Pro or Ableton making music or using Suno. I think we've kind of been there, especially for like basic instrumental tracks. And I listen to those all the time, actually, from AI, like AI instrumental
Yeah.
tracks.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think with the lyric singer, you're right. There's still a human input requirement there because, it's like you said, it's like, it's hard to quantify or come up with a metric on what verse hits or doesn't hit. Although, I mean, sometimes I hear some AI generated song, I'm like, oh, damn, that was deep. Or maybe because deep is in the mind of the beholder, as they say, right? I mean, it's like,
totally.
it's lyrics aren't like objectively, you know, they create an emotion based on the person that's hearing and how they're interpreting it. That's what art is. And so I feel like definitely for the first AI natives, when I say an AI native song, I don't mean like, I think more likely than not, it won't be like some random dude like me who creates it. It'll probably be an artist who understands music, who has taste, who, probably adds the right amount of input and gets the output, really gets the output, maximum output out of the model. So it's a hybrid connection, for sure, human and machines coming together.
Right. Totally. Yeah, it's super interesting. We'll see. I wonder when the next top 100 AI generated song will be when we get the first one,
It'll be even
and
funny if
what
it's like
genre.
they market it as a human and then it was actually AI or something, then piss
I
people
this
off.
th- and this is an interesting thing too because there's a lot of criticism on AI generated text and video and images, like watermarking, invisible watermarking. So I think ChatGPT was starting to put in these invisible characters into outputs, just so you can watermark that this output was generated by AI, not by a human. Same thing with Meta. I know that there's an effort across the industry to put like steganography, something that is inside the actual image data that
Right,
represents kind of like a signed key, saying this was like created by, like, who created this? Was it created by Apple? Like taking a iPhone, like when your iPhone takes a photo, there's a lot of metadata in that photo, but you could also sign those images. So if this was created by Gemini, or if this was created by whoever, like an actual camera or phone, you could actually have, who
right,
created
yeah.
this. So I wonder if that'll be the same with music, because the record labels, I can see this on Google right now,
But
like
yeah,
they
I
came
mean,
down.
we'll definitely have cryptographic signatures inbuilt in all sorts of media, images, videos, audios. The thing though is like you have to like there's open source models and the genie's out of the ball, and for sure you'll have people, who don't want that to be able to generate media without the signatures now. So it doesn't this is more of it mitigates maybe widespread more like for the mainstream guy, if, to prevent him from
Right.
generating like a banger without giving credit to the studios. But there will be ways around it. And same with probably existing media. There'll probably be services where like you can remove watermarks on images. You'll probably have something which takes an audio, passes it, and maybe adds some sort of filter on it that adds white noise and confuses the signature, or like, just
Right.
adds noise to the signature itself
Totally.
and corrupts it. So yeah, I mean, this has been a battle that's been going on since the Napster days and even before that. So,
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see also how like Spotify and the music distributors embrace or not this type of content. I know Spotify has been pretty open. They say, hey, we don't care. Like, we want to, if it's AI generated, whether it's podcasts
yeah.
actually or music or things, they're
Yeah,
like, hey,
I think they lean in. I wouldn't be surprised they try to acquire Suno or UDO or one of these big companies. Just
that'd be
acquire, be
nice.
like, all right, come in, let's generate. I think I read a story maybe last year was how Spotify actually, especially for lo-fi, it's quietly started pumping more lo-fi songs in their algorithm, and the reason is because most lo-fi is AI generated, and so you don't have to pay royalties. So for them, they actually make more money. They prefer you to listen to lo-fi rather than listen to a Taylor Swift song. And so they've started creating these AI generated lo-fi lists that are in-house and recommending them. And a lot of people are pissed about
Super
that.
interesting.
That's probably going to happen with pop songs and stuff because for them, margin is everything, right? So they'd rather you listen to AI generated songs.
That's so interesting. I didn't think about this because, yeah, I mean, like, you're taking away the power from the record labels. If the content that Spotify is promoting is content created within the Spotify ecosystem, not through a record label, like if I went on to Suno or Spotify for musicians, and just created a song and posted to Spotify, and Spotify pays me out as a creator,
Right.
and just incentivizes me to do it,
Right.
and they pumped my stuff to people, like,
Yeah.
because my daily mixes or whatever, I mean, I just listen to whatever's played there. If there's a few songs in there that are normally would have been like a big musician from a record label, but now they're replaced by Spotify artists or musicians, it just
Yeah.
starts to save them. Yeah, wow.
Yeah. I mean,
Interesting.
human labor is the big thing, right? Same with Uber and robo taxis. Same
Mm,
right now. Every company is, whether they admit it or not, they're like, all right, the human expense needs to go.
no, totally. Well, and this is interesting too, because this kind of segues. We were talking about money and like compensation. I know you were using this new payment protocol. I don't know if
Right.
you'd call it a payment protocol, but it's X42, which is
402. Yeah.
for yeah,
Yeah.
402.
Yeah. No, I like 42 too. I mean, they should like probably reserve that header.
I think all the HTTP codes under 100 are reserved, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's super interesting. So kind of, I guess backing up, before I dive into the 402 technicals and stuff,
Right.
here's my little philosophical story, which I think to set it up. And I think it's pretty cool because about 10 years ago, there was this very famous economics professor, Ashwin Damaroran, who I respect a lot. Like, I think he's phenomenal. He's a world expert at valuation. Well, like, he put out this, basically, he looked at Uber's stock price at the time. It was a private company, but he looked at the valuation and it didn't make any sense to him because what he did was he basically said, all right, let's be generous. Assume Uber gets 100% of all the taxi market. And so he took the TAM, the total addressable market of all the taxi market in the US. And he said, let's assume Uber gets all of it. And then he looks at the valuation of Uber, and Uber's valuation is way higher than that. And he's like, this doesn't make any sense to me. So Uber is totally overvalued. That was his thesis. He puts it out there, obviously, he's a world expert at valuations. A lot of people start talking about it. A legendary venture capitalist by the name of Bill Gurley, who's at Benchmark, who happened to be the lead investors or one of the lead investors in Uber at this time, he puts out a rebuttal to this. And he puts out a blog post about why the economics professor is wrong. And his basic argument was, oh, professor, I'm paraphrasing. He didn't say that, but he said, here's what you don't understand. You assume the total addressable market stays the same. But what you underestimate is that when people have a totally frictionless way, like people who, had to call a cab, wait for it, get in the cab, then go from A to B, who would never call that cab in that scenario, now can just go on their phone, tap it, and be like, oh, yeah, I don't want to walk the 3 blocks. Let's just get an Uber. You underestimate how that frictionlessness behavior is going to unlock so many more use cases for Uber. Same with like groceries and stuff. And so you don't take that into account, how the market itself will grow because of the ease of use. And
Right.
fast forward 10 years, and Bill Gurley was right. I mean, because Uber basically, if you had invested, as Jason Calacanis will keep repeating, you would have made a lot of money being an investor in Uber.
Right.
So I guess I love this story because there's a lot of, I think, lessons I draw from the story, based on my whole investing journey as well. But one of the reason I wanted to bring up this story is because I believe we are basically at this paradigm again with agents. Every time we've talked about agents, most of the time, whenever I talk to people, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, agent's gonna book a hotel for you, an agent's gonna book flight for you, or a restaurant reservation, blah blah blah," and they're talking human to agent like interactions. I believe the agent to agent interactions are going to be hundreds, if not thousands of times more than the human to agent economy. And the reason is because of what we were just talking about, the frictionlessness, because we'll just be able to have millisecond level, easy agent to agent interactions. And it'll just happen at the nano millisecond scale that, humans, just don't operate at. And so that's why the economy will be way bigger because of that. And I think one of the big things that will unlock this is going to be a seamless payment system for agent to agents. And this is where I think crypto is going to play a huge role because just right now making a small micro transaction with you, like, hey, Pierson, I like that jelly bot hat. Can I get it? You're like, all right, well, I'll ship it to you, right? Okay, let me set up a Sprite payment link. Oh, they take 30 cents and 5%. So I'm going to charge you like at least $10. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense for me. So it just creates such a hurdle for us to have this, transaction. Whereas with crypto, I can instantly send you like, let's say $5 or whatever, right? And you can just ship me the hat. And so I think crypto is going to play a huge role with agent to agents, and Coinbase realized this. And one of the things they put out recently, which I think is a step towards this world, is 402, as we mentioned before. So what is 402? So 402 is basically, it's actually an old header method, reserve head method in HTTP land since the 90s. It's basically a payment method. It's a method which you use if you want to require payment. If you call 402 method, and it can say, if you give me a payment, I'll accept it. If not, I'll reject it immediately. So it's just a seamless way of using fetch with a payment validation built in.
And I want to just nail this down just for people that may not have an understanding of like how this works. Just to take it one quick step back, because when you're using the internet, you as a user, your browser makes requests to a server. And when you like look at your Instagram feed, essentially your app is saying, hey, I request my feed, all those images, give me back all those images, right?
Right.
And so you're requesting a resource on that server, which is those images, and then they download and then they show up on your app, right? And that's like a normal request and response on the internet. And that response has a code. That code
Right.
is 200 saying,
Right.
okay, status is good, everything.
Right.
In the 400 range, that means that there's some issue. If it was 400, 401, 402, 403. And so back in the day, when HTTP was first created, they reserved certain codes to say 401 means this, 402 means this, 403 means this. And so if you are Instagram and you're on your phone, you're scrolling and you say, hey, give me those images, and it returns 401, it was like, hey, there's something that went wrong. You need to do something as the client, like, hey, like fix, like re-sign in, or something's going wrong. 402 is specifically for, hey, you requested this thing, but you can't get this thing until you pay us. And so it was like 402 meant payment required. So when you make a request, the server responds with 402 saying, hey, payments required. You have to follow this step to pay. And that was just never implemented. Like it sat there, it was reserved as a status code, but nobody used it until now. So I just
Right.
wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that we
Yeah.
clarified.
No, that was a great explanation. And the
yeah.
reason it was never used is because we pay using banks and stuff. And so
Right.
when Stripe came along, it was a great innovation. But Stripe was a wrapper on banks because what it does is you call the Stripe API, you say, here's $10, and Stripe under the hood goes to a merchant bank or Visa or whatever and says, oh, and settles the transaction for you. With crypto, you can basically, use a blockchain, and you can do a transaction, and then you can send that to the 402 header, and and that's like, hey, here's my proof of payment. I did the payment, give me the resource. And the cool thing about using a HTTP method versus if Coinbase had come up with their own SDK is like HTTP is universal. So it doesn't, you can use it using in Coinbase, you can use it in Vue, React, doesn't matter. It's a universal standard. So a global standard, like supported on HTTP. So it's literally the internet supports it. And so the flexibility that it enables for any agent, like a Chinese agent from a Chinese lab talking to an agent from a human lab, like, it just
Totally
works. So,
cool.
and
I also like want to like, so like the 402, when it said, when you request a resource, you get a 402 back saying payments required. In that response, so there's a address, right? Like what's in that response? So allows me to actually fulfill that payment without going through Stripe or a bank. Like, could you like explain that? Like how does the actual transaction get fulfilled there?
yeah, I should show the demo of the player and stuff, because actually it does a better job of showing the headers.
Let's do it. I mean, let's show that. You want to screen share real quick?
Yeah. Let me.
So if you're listening on Spotify, we'll upload the video, should be here as well. So, but just if you want to watch the demo, pause
Yes.
it, come back, look at it. We'll still talk through it. Don't worry. But
Yes.
yeah, it's super. We talked about this before, and with MCPs, agents, payments, the economy, like going back to the whole thing about just the total addressable market of the economy. It's so interesting because right now, the lowest, like we have automations, we have machines, we have factories, and those operate pretty autonomously with human oversight. Like you have a car factory and there's no one human controlling those arms. The assembly line goes down, but humans are still very much required in the software world. And when you enter into a world where software is very easily producible by AI, you could have agents writing their own software, interacting with other agents, doing business functions that typically are required by humans to do, like your entry-level data engineers. You could have agents running 24/7, writing code, analyzing data, that operate like a factory, producing intelligent insights that next morning when the human comes into the office, like, hey, like your agent was working all night on this, here's the report. And the agent also had access to a wallet and the ability to pay. So like if you're an investment bank and you're an analyst, you're an entry-level analyst, you have an agent that when you go home at 5 p.m. or 9 p.m. or wherever you go home as a investment banker. Your agent next morning's worked all night while you're sleeping to take what you finished, and maybe it went to go look at some interesting data. Like there's maybe the agriculture data, like by the U.S. Department of like forestry, or the forestry department, and they had this paywall where it said, "Hey, for every row of data you need from us, pay us 1/10 of a cent."
Right.
And the agent has a wallet and it can go off and do this. And it has, rather than having just intelligence, it has capital. And I think when you mix in an economy, you have intelligent labor or just like physical labor. You have some sort of labor, and then you also have capital. And those are like the two things kind of required in most circumstances to create capital and labor.
Yeah, it's a proper
And
economy. It's a goods and services, like you said, like, you're
right,
requesting resources, and you can like create cool stuff. You can get your own agent to maybe, take your voice, create a blog post and paywall it and be like, rather than going on Substack or whatever, you can just say, hey, you pay me 10 cents or, $1, and you can access my blog post or whatever. Or for training data, you can sell your data. You're like, hey, you can have my data, but, just pay me a bit, every time you crawl. So
totally.
this is a good example. So Vercel has a starter, we'll link it too. But I like this page. They have API Playground. So what they show is like they have two examples. They have a math calculator, and this one has the 402 fetch method enabled. So when you try to do a calculation, what it does is it says payment header is required. The network we are using is base Sepolia. So this is all based on the base network, which is Coinbase's Ethereum EVM compatible network, and base Sepolia is the test net. So it's the test net, and the main in blockchain there's mainnet and there's testnet. So in Ethereum would be the mainnet, and their testnets where they have different testnets where you can go test stuff if you don't want to work with real money until you're ready. So base Sepolia is the testnet of base. And you have other stuff like the resource.
And Base is a cryptocurrency. Is it a cryptocurrency, or is it like
No,
what
it's a
is
blockchain.
Base?
It's a blockchain.
It's a blockchain.
It's the
So you'd pay with Ethereum here?
USDC, which is
USDC.
also compatible with the it's a EVM compatible currency. But you can see there's payment required. So now you can enable payment, which under the hood basically you send the payment and you get a resource back. And so you get 3, which is like, I guess 1 + 2 was what the math we were doing here. But you can see the header response, the payment address. You can see the transaction probably as well. There should be a transaction. Maybe this is the transaction ID. So you can go check it on the block scan. Like, okay, the transaction happened. There should be a max payment, a max amount required too. So you can set up max payment as well, right? So here, I guess it's a 5. This is probably 5 cents, I'm guessing, because it's in it's like a million units or whatever. But yeah, so you can have different constraints on ID. So I think this is cool, right? I mean, you can have different services and stuff. And I actually played around this myself. And so what I wanted to, I'll kind of show what I like. I wanted to build like this app where I can sell my jokes. And so this is, let's see if it shows up. I don't know if it'll work. So it says basically, it's the app's called Nickle Joke, where you pay a nickel and you get a joke back. And so uh, so you have to connect the wallet first. And
So do you think like Chrome, like you're gonna kind of need to be in the Web3 ecosystem for this right here, where you go to a website, you click connect wallet. I was always kind of like not weirded out, but I'm just like, connect wallet, like what is that doing? What do you mean you're connecting to my wallet? I was always kind of just like,
yeah, I mean,
it gave
that's
me
the
an icky
hurdle right
feeling.
now. It's people don't, I mean, you have to have a wallet and stuff, which can be, I guess, annoying. Let me connect. Okay, that's connected now. So so let me just do a surprise me, and you can see this pops up. You can it's asking for a 5 USDC transaction.
Coinbase has a wallet now on your browser, which is nice.
Yeah, Coinbase wallet. So,
Nice.
and so you get a joke back, which I can reveal. This is just a fun. Hey, this is my joke. The trial breakers, and I can download and stuff. And so yeah, so that was a flow. But the idea was that you can like imagine that could be a service. You could be a jelly pod podcast, that you're selling for $1. It could be a blog or something. So, I
Do
feel like
you
there's so much potential here.
and so I want to like I think the question that people are going to ask is like, why does this matter? Payments already accepted on the internet, right?
Right. It's the
And
seamlessness,
you're
I feel like, that's
so
what's the key.
so it's like right here, it's like you didn't have to enter in your billing information. You didn't have to go through a checkout flow. You didn't have to create an account. There's no like Stripe imposes fees. So Stripes and banks impose fees on credit card transactions and everything. So
Right.
what's like 30 cents? No, it's like 2 point something cents plus wait, what is it?
Right. Yeah.
Whatever. Like there's a few cents. So you
It's a
can't
minimum of 30 cents or 2%, 2% or 3% fee. So whatever it is. So you can't really do, if you wanted to do less than 30 cents of a transaction, you can't really, because I mean, the transaction fee itself is 30 cents, right? So we've never really had a world where it's possible to do like a 1 penny transaction or
right.
something. So,
Totally, totally. And that's why you see credits where people top up credits and then they debit your credits on like an account because, when you do, let's say when you go to FAL or replicate, you top up, you pay $100, they'll take $100 from your credit card. And then now they own a balance of like $100 in the FAL ecosystem. And then they can debit you, 1 cent or whatever, because the transaction that went to Stripe was only $100. They paid the 30 cents and then they could just debit as whatever you want. But that just becomes an overhead for companies where now you have to manage credit infrastructure.
mhm.
And so you can't just like have an agent that says, hey, you can't just like set up within probably an hour just accepting 1 cent transactions to do something. Like I see it's super cool. Like think about right now, we use an email provider called Resend. It kind of gets expensive, right? And we
Mhm.
pay them every month for managing an address, a bunch of email addresses, and the ability to send out emails, independent of whether or not we used it. And I could just see like a lot of like serverless, like taking serverless to one more level where serverless was this idea where I didn't have to, as a business, I didn't have to buy servers and manage servers and actually worry about all the intricacies of scale up, scale down, everything. It's just like, hey, I write a program and I throw it on this serverless infrastructure that just runs it. They handle everything about scaling up, scaling down, everything. But on the payment side, we're kind of still in the server aspect where you have to manage credits, you have to manage like scaling up to make sure like your pricing, everything. But if I could just say, hey, I can accept as much or as little because you just have to pay me and the transaction is fulfilled without having to set up Stripe and set up your banking and have a middleman in between, that's really cool. So maybe we're
Right.
entering the world of serverless payments,
Right.
kind of.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great analogy. And to be clear, just like some jobs require servers and other require servers, there will be a use case for both, because one of the downsides of these microtransactions, there's no, like if you feel like you've been defrauded or something, there's no such thing as chargeback because there's no party you can go to and be like, and that's where I imagine what's going to happen is I think you'll have some sort of threshold. You decide, hey, you know what? Anything less than $10, I don't need the guarantee. Even if I, lose $10, it's whatever. So I'd rather not have no fees and pay $10 and take the risk of a chargeback, like not having the ability to do a chargeback. But anything more than $10 or $100, I actually want the bank to have my back, right? And I actually want to go through the old channels. So I think for most people, we'll have that threshold, right? Where under a certain threshold, it's microtransactions like Venmo, versus above that, you use a credit card and you pay a fee for it.
So do you think, I mean, here, do you see Visa or MasterCard kind of implementing this on their end? Like imagine right there on your website, you had Nicklejokes. You click connect wallet, Visa or whatever, rather than connect wallet, it could be like connect card or connect wallet. You click that button and you have your credit card, like instead of using Coinbase wallet, like you showed in the browser extension,
Right.
you have like Visa wallet, and Visa then they would just do like they would convert, they would either have a balance on your credit card of like crypto or they have their own, like I wonder if like you'll see the card networks try to come in and just give you the flexibility of like, hey, we could just use crypto to pay this transaction and bypass
Yeah.
for like
No,
small
I
ones, or
totally see that. They will definitely get in on the game. They've actually been interested. I'm sure they'll partner with Circle or one of these other companies they've already talked about. And like, to come to your point, you just mentioned first, we are still very early. Like the fact that I had to, like, you were like, oh, wait, we had a wallet and you have to connect it. It's annoying. I mean, in the real world, what would happen is I see your page, I go and I click yes, and I get the joke, whatever, right? And I think what will happen is this technology will get baked into the browser or under the hood, where maybe you set up right now in Chrome, I can set up a virtual card. Like my credit card is saved in details in my Chrome browser. So if I go to a checkout page, I just autofill my credit card, right? I think it should be that simple. My crypto wallet or whatever, I should not need to set it up. Like it actually took me even, and I feel like I know a lot about crypto. It was very annoying setting up the testnet. I actually had to set up a new network because it's not an Ethereum network, it's a base network, then a testnet, then I had to send the money via faucet and all this stuff. And I'm like, this is so ridiculous, you know? I should just have it in my browser and be able to seamlessly go to any site and use it. And so I think that's what's going to happen. That's how mainstream usage will happen. It'll just be baked in. Maybe it'll be a Visa service or something. And under the hood, maybe they use blockchain or not, but we shouldn't care. It's like HTTP or, even under that TCP, right? We don't talk
Mhm.
about the TCP protocol. We're like, no, we're just, chatting.
Right. I wonder if this too, like Claude Code, like the SDKs, these agent SDKs will like, I think that makes total sense for the Claude Code SDK to have an inbuilt tool where, for example, like if you're using Claude Code, it can call tools and all this non-deterministic stuff. Like you tell Claude to go, hey, I want to do this goal. You tell it a fuzzy goal, go write this software program for me, or go analyze this data, or go on the internet and search for this person. And it calls tools throughout the process. It's like non-deterministic. Hey, like I found this person. Let's look on their LinkedIn page. And then you just do all these like tool calls. It's non-deterministic, takes a long time. It's spinning its wheels. And eventually it gets to some output that hopefully is good enough to say, hey, I did a deep research on this person. Here's their whole profile and blah, blah, blah. And that was what I requested as a user for Claude to do. But I wonder if in the SDK, in like, not the model layer, but the SDK that wraps the model, will have just kind of built in, hey, if you want to initialize the Claude Code SDK with a wallet and give it permissions to send payment when it experiences a 402, hey, just give me your secret key or whatever you need into the SDK, and then maybe it'll say, hey, don't ever send more than 5 cents per transaction. You have some safeguards, but
I see that. And it's funny because you say that because the starter itself, they literally have an MCP for 402. So they actually launched it with an MCP, which makes sense to your point. Like, it should just be under the hood. Maybe you talk to Claude and then it has access to all the tools and understands the actual transaction logic and stuff, so.
I think that's the key. Like, I think that's so big because right now when you use APIs, like,
Right.
if MCP is going to be the way forward for agents to interact with services versus APIs, like MCPs, I mean, you're going to have to, I think it's going to be really cool just to wrap that MCP server as like, hey, if you want to do this one thing or you want to fetch this one piece of data, you have to bring along 1 cent or something. You have to pay to use this. And it would be interesting. You know how we talked about in the past, the Satori MCP, like that React generator for images. And like, I could just totally see just like I built the MCP server. Anyone builds whatever MCP server. And when you request to do the thing to generate the image, I just wrap that with the 402, the response. And then you have to just send me the 1 cent to generate the image.
Yeah, no, it is for sure. And I wanted to show the other screen the starter has. So this is pretty cool. What they do is this is a chat app, but they have access to an MCP, which is got access to a wallet, right? And it's calling 402. So I asked the question, "What's my account balance?" It replies 117. Maybe for this one chat, it costs a certain amount of money. Well, I guess it doesn't, but I so maybe it'll be something like that where you are chatting with a Claude or whatever, and then it uses the tools like the 402 method to go. Maybe it's just you can say, "Oh, buy me a Nickle Joke," and you don't worry about setting up the wallet and stuff. It's already set up with the agent, and it does do that. So this is
I bet you what
interesting.
happens here is that like ChatGPT and OpenAI, if 402 becomes supported as the payment framework, what I bet you'll do is OpenAI is going to make you top up your balance, and they will say, hey, like give ChatGPT $100, whatever. And then if ChatGPT goes out and needs to access MCP servers, they'll pay behind the scenes with 402, keeping your actual keeping your actual US dollars and like investing, kind of like Robinhood, whatever they know they
Right.
do. They
Yeah.
just have a
But
balance of a lot of cash.
no, so for sure. By the way, did you see what just happened here? It's very cool. So I called, I said generate a random number between 1 and 10, which is a paid tool called get random number. It replies with an error, which is similar to the one we showed before where we didn't have enabled payment, where it says, oh, generating a random number requires a payment of 0.001 USDC. Would you like to proceed? I said yes. And it uses, and then it calls it again and it uses the payment and it pays the tool. So I feel so. See, this is like a glimpse into the future where your agents will. This is not quite agent to agent, but this is the agent to human part where your agent goes. Maybe it does an action, but then it can ask you for a confirmation, and it just does it right, and it uses the 402 method seamlessly for it. So
I haven't read the spec of this, but from what I just see here, is what happening behind the scenes. So if you scroll up, it says, okay, 402 payment required, and the response there is like, okay, pay to that address. So you have that address 0x7839.
right,
And so what happened when you said generate payment authorization? So what's happening is that me as the client, I'm paying the 0.001 cent, and then I'm recalling that same tool with like a receipt saying, hey, yes, I did pay this. Here's how you can check this. And then the MCP server will go with that, look up that receipt, say, hey, did that transaction complete? And if it did, then it'll authorize and then respond back. Is that what's happening?
yes,
Or is it?
right,
Okay.
yeah, exactly, and because it's a universal standard, your MCP tools, like imagine like going to Shopify and figuring out, oh, Shopify's method, if you don't pay, this is the exact Shopify message versus Amazon message. With 402, the tool, it's deterministic enough, you're going to get the same exact error. So you can be very confident in your MCP that, oh, if you see this error, that means I need to tell my user, hey, for this field, this is the amount required. Should I go
Right.
and then pay it, right? And then you can recall the tool with the exact so I guess what I'm trying to say is because it's a universal standard, we can have more confidence in making these payment transactions and the back and forth because it's like the same fields over and over again, right? So
Right.
and
No,
then it
it's
calls it again, and then it gets the exact same. Like this is the exact method response it's gonna get. So again, deterministic, boring, structured logic is 99% of the
right.
future agent work.
And it's going to be super interesting because I mean, like, we're showing us, and we have, because whenever there's a paradigm shift in anything, we think about it in the worldview that currently exists. So we're thinking about anything in like, okay, what exists today, and how does this new technology fit into how we interact with things today? So right now, like, the demo that you just showed was purely, hey, I have a chat interface. It responded with the 402. I responded yes, pay the 1/10 of the cent to add that number, and then it did the thing. And it was like traditional, it's a chat interface, it's the
Right.
current world.
Yes.
But in
And
the
this is
world
a
of
simple
agents,
flow, right? But
right,
it's kind of like if this then that. You can make it more calming. Maybe I'll say, hey, I wanted this whatever watch or something. If it's less than $100, just buy it. But if it's more, you need to send me a text or ping me and let me know, hey, okay, it's actually 110. Are you sure? Should I buy it? And then maybe I say, okay, yeah, buy it, right? So you
right,
can have this logic in this loop where it's almost like
right,
having an assistant. It's kind of like having an executive assistant, which rich people have, right? You give them a structure, like, all right, I need this and that, and then call me if, the amount gets to a certain amount because, you don't want to confirm. But it's kind of like
totally.
having your own assistant basically out there.
Yeah. It's super interesting. And circling this back to like, I didn't complete my thought earlier about the email stuff. Like, yeah, we use an email service. We pay a lot of money every month. It's a
Yeah.
subscription based, and we do this. But imagine if your agent to complete a task, going back to like the investment banker example, like the agent was like, hey, like there's a person that I found on LinkedIn. It seems like the perfect person to ask them a question. I need access to an email send. Like, how do I send the email? Maybe I have connected to your own Gmail, cool. But maybe I don't, and there's another reason why. But Resend over here, they have an email send service. You wouldn't want to necessarily have to pre-configure every tool for the agent to have access to. If the agent says, Resend says, if I send them 1 cent, I can send 1 email. And I'm just going to go up to them with the 402. It's like, hey, send this email for me. Here's your 1 cent to send that email to that
Yeah.
person and
No,
come back. And
absolutely.
so,
And
yeah.
I totally forgot about this point, but this was one of the, I think the core reasons I'm excited about this is like, we are just live in subscription hell. And I understand where it comes from because, recurring revenue, we understand that
Right.
we're in the business of it. We're
Right,
SaaS
right,
ourselves,
right.
but it is, as a consumer, it is just so annoying. Like we were talking about Suno. We started this conversation about Suno about, oh, should we upgrade or not? I would rather just pay 10 cents. Let me use Suno V5, 10 cents. If I like it, maybe I pay you another 50 cents, whatever, for 5 more songs. I don't like the commitment. And I hope this is, maybe I'm being too naive, but hopefully we get with this new economy, we get a pushback to the subscription tier services we're just inundated with right now, where we have a Netflix subscription, we have an Amazon subscription, we have so many subscriptions. Rather than that, I would rather just have a set amount. I'm like, this is the amount of I want to watch, this is my $15 for shows this month. I refuse to go over this. What can I buy with $15 worth of shows or movies, whatever, right? And I just have budgets, mini budgets for everything.
Yeah.
So
And this change, this is like the innovator's dilemma. And this change will not come top down. This will come bottoms up, where you have startups that come in and disrupt because they can offer a service that maybe is equivalent to some incumbent, but the incumbent service is $20 a month, where this one's like, hey, it's free to use, but every time you generate a song, it's just going to cost you 5 cents. And you don't have to
I
pay
mean,
a subscription.
that's totally legit business model. Literally just copy Slack, copy whatever, and be like, it's literally the same thing, but no subscription. You just pay on demand. I mean, honestly, we don't really even need crypto for that. And I understand, why there's certain reasons it doesn't work. Maybe at scale, maybe with enterprise, like they actually do like the contracts and stuff. As we know. But still, I feel like there's a legitimate use case for a lot of B2C apps, at least, and maybe even B2B, where people would just literally, if you give them 90% of the features with no subscription, they will take it and they will pay. And a lot of times they'll actually end up paying more because of the flexibility. It's like serverless. Sometimes your serverless bill is way more than if you had just gotten a server, but I rather pay more serverless just because I'm on the hook for, paying X dollars a month. And
Because
it
it
can
scales, the
scale up and
incentives are
down.
aligned.
Exactly. Right. So yeah, interesting generative media tangent we went down there. But tying this to generative media, I think this is how it enables us to tell each other story. Maybe I generate a Jellypod podcast or a video or something, or a short, and I put it up there, and I'm like, hey, you can have this. You can either view it for this sense, or you can just buy it outright for the copyright for this amount, right? And you can have a whole economy based on that, user stories and content media.
No, totally. I think this pairs so well with agents and doing tasks, enabling with money, but also with generative media. I think this would be super cool, where you could see, hey, this generate an image for like 1/10 of a cent, and nobody's going to even think about it. You're just going to generate. But that will be interesting, because I sometimes still struggle to see like why this can't be done with just like the credits model, unless it's purely for, hey, somebody can whip up an app really quickly without having to think about payment infrastructure, without having to think about Stripe or billing, maybe even like Stripe doesn't exist in the country that the person's developing in. Like some countries still
Right,
don't
right.
support Stripe or whatever, and
Yeah.
crypto
But,
is
but think
that.
about the example I showed you. If I had to do this with this, I would need auth because, you know,
You need auth.
I would definitely need auth. Then I would need a Stripe link. But let's say I can get around auth by having you pay, and then maybe you generate a coupon, which you can then have a credit. But how would I track? Like, I would need
Sure.
a user. So that already, adds like a back end or something like that. Versus that was literally just like a page. That's a client side app, right? So I feel like there's
Totally.
it
That's good.
definitely, in a way, you're outsourcing the database to you, because what is the database is your wallet. It's you. right? And
And it's privacy
yeah,
centric too, which is
yes,
cool. It's like
yeah,
you don't need to store like as the world moves more towards, hey, every single piece of data needs to be deletable and like all the cookie banners and all this pain, that's unnecessary in the internet today. But if you don't even collect it in the first place, you don't need auth. You don't need to protect information because you never get it in the first place.
right,
So it's
right.
cool.
And if you need it, like you can have pseudo anonymous identity where you can generate a wallet, use it, transact it. It's like having a virtual credit card number, and once you're done, delete the wallet or move on, right? And I do think actually that'll be a huge case. It's almost like we talked about, when we talk about auth and stuff, like RLS or whatever, that this table has access to this. Like, well, in the finance world, like you can scope it out. You can have a wallet, put in $20, and you can, or this sketchy website, go crazy with that. But the worst case scenario, you can get hack my wallet. I can lose this $20, but this is a very isolated. Or you're like you can create the blast radius you want for
Right.
transactions. And I think that's very powerful for sure.
Right. Right. No, it's super interesting. Yeah, this episode took a really fun tangent because we started off with music, then we got into payments, and there was other stuff that happened in the world, but I don't think we'll get to it today.
Yeah, I know. Lots going on, but tune in next week and, see us continue.
Tune in next week because, like we say every time, we didn't get to some stuff, and then we'll say we'll talk about it next week, and sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't, and so it's just a roll of the dice. We'll see.
I don't know. Just too much new stuff coming out. So, what
Yeah.
are you going to do?
But
Yeah.
take care. Bye.